They say some doors aren't meant to open, but when it's raining and your phone is dead and there's nowhere else to go, even the oldest door might seem like a refuge. But once you're inside, you're already part of the story, a story that watches back. If you're brave enough to keep watching, subscribe to Night Shivers Stories, because some stories are more than just words. Some stories are traps. It started with the rain. It always does. Heavy sheets of water fell across the cracked streets of Mayfield, Virginia. Nora was just looking for a place to get out of the storm. Her phone was dead. Her soaked shoes made every step feel like a cold squish. That's when she saw the sign. Wooden, chipped, barely hanging on a rusted nail. Whitaker & Sons, Antiques and Curiosities. The windows were fogged. She could barely see inside, but the door creaked open on its own, like it had been waiting for her. She stepped in. The smell hit her first. Dust, wood polish, and something else. Something older. Something that shouldn't still be breathing. Behind the counter sat an old man with watery eyes and hands that looked like parchment. He didn't speak, just nodded. Nora smiled awkwardly, shivered, and wandered through the aisles. There were clocks that didn't tick, paintings that seemed to breathe, dolls with eyes too lifelike. And in the far corner, a full-length mirror covered in a tattered black cloth. She didn't touch it, not then. What she didn't know was this. The store didn't want customers. It wanted witnesses. Nora wandered deeper into the aisles. The farther she moved from the door, the quieter everything became, unnaturally quiet. The antique shop seemed endless now, the shelves winding in strange, crooked paths like a maze that was never meant to be solved. She paused beside a wooden grandfather clock, its glass face cracked. At first, she thought it wasn't working, but then she noticed the second hand twitching. Backwards. It moved with jerky, deliberate snaps counting time in reverse. The minute hand followed suit. A chill crawled up her spine. The sound returned, barely audible creaking from behind a curtain in the back room. She turned quickly, expecting to see the old man, but the front of the store was empty. She looked at the entrance. The door was now closed. She hadn't heard it shut. Instinctively, she pulled out her phone. Still dead, but now the screen displayed something odd. A blurry image of her face, eyes closed, as if taken moments ago without her knowing. She hadn't taken that photo. Her breath quickened. The silence wasn't silence anymore. It was listening, drawn by equal parts fear and curiosity. Nora stepped closer to the swaying curtain. The fabric was old, thick red velvet, stiff from dust and age. As she pushed it aside, she found herself in a side room she hadn't noticed before. It was filled with mannequins, rows of them, frozen mid-pose like dancers caught mid-spin. Their faces were blank. No eyes, no mouths, just the soft suggestion of where features might have been. But something about their positions felt deliberate, almost choreographed. She stepped between them carefully, heart hammering. Some wore tattered dresses from a century ago. Others had jewelry that looked far too modern for such a dusty place. One had a scarf that looked exactly like the one she lost on the subway 2 weeks ago. The mannequins weren't just standing. They were gathering, facing her. Then, something even worse. The one nearest to her now had its head tilted slightly. She was sure it hadn't been before. Its hands, once hanging limp, were now raised, just a little, as if they were reaching. She backed away, breath shaking. From behind her, a faint voice whispered, "Don't turn around." She froze. Nora didn't move. Every nerve in her body told her to run, but the air around her had thickened like tar. Slowly, she reached for the curtain behind her, expecting to feel velvet, but instead, her fingers touched something cold, hard, like glass, but she had just walked through it. Turning, she discovered the curtain was gone. In its place stood a frame, tall, ornate, gilded in tarnished brass, a mirror but with no reflection. Just darkness. She waved her hand before it. Nothing, no image, just an endless depth, like looking into a deep well that absorbed light. Then a flicker. Something moved within the dark. She leaned closer, hypnotized. A face appeared, not hers. It stared at her with sunken eyes and a mouth that smiled too wide, too wrong. Its skin was cracked like old porcelain, and as it leaned forward, Nora felt breath on her cheek. She screamed and stumbled back. The mannequins had moved again. They now formed a ring around her. And the mirror. The frame was empty again, but her reflection was still inside. Nora bolted from the room, her heartbeat thundering. She ran blindly, weaving through the store's narrow passages, but the layout had changed. The paths twisted, repeating. She passed the same dusty gramophone 3 times. The exit was gone. Then she heard it, breathing. Not hers, not human. The store exhaled. A long, slow groan from the walls themselves. Shelves trembled, items rattled. The air became warm and humid, like she was inside something alive. The wallpaper pulsed. She pressed her palm against a shelf. It was warm, and it moved, like muscle twitching beneath skin. She stumbled backward and knocked over a ceramic doll. Its head cracked, revealing something inside. Not stuffing. A human tooth. The store exhaled again. This time, a whisper followed. Nora. She spun around. Nothing. Just aisles folding inward. Light bulbs flickered and burst. And then came the low, echoing footsteps, not hers, closing in from every direction. Out of the suffocating dark stepped the old man. But now he looked different. Taller, straighter, eyes sharper. His face was still pale and wrinkled, but something pulsed beneath his skin. Something that didn't belong to this world. "Lost, dear?" he asked, his voice smooth, too calm. Nora backed away, but the aisles behind her had collapsed. There was nowhere to run. "You came through the door," he said, smiling. "That means you belong now." He gestured around him. "This place, it remembers everyone. And it doesn't like to forget." Nora shouted, "What do you want from me?" "To stay," he said simply. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small, oval mirror. The reflection inside wasn't Nora. It was the porcelain-faced figure from before. Smiling, "This is your room now," he said. "Your aisle. Soon someone will come in from the rain. They'll need shelter. And you'll be here, waiting." She turned to run, but her feet wouldn't move. Her hands, her skin, they were stiffening, cracking. The mannequins weren't mannequins. They were the ones who came before, and now it was her turn. The transformation was slow, deliberate. Nora's skin stiffened, cracking with every breath. Her knees buckled, yet she remained upright, held by invisible threads. The old man watched in quiet reverence as if attending a sacred ceremony. Behind her, the mannequins began to hum, a low, discordant note that echoed through the breathing walls. But then something resisted, a flicker of movement inside the oval mirror. Her eyes, still human, met the porcelain version staring back. But in that glass world, Nora saw her own hand clench. It moved before she did. The mirror wasn't a reflection, it was a trap. And her real self was in there. With a scream of defiance, Nora shattered the mirror against a shelf. The old man flinched. The mannequins froze. The shop trembled. Lights exploded above her, and from the cracks in the wooden floor came a howling wind, screaming voices of those long trapped, now swirling in chaos. The mirror shards glowed, casting fragments of truth across the walls. One by one, the mannequins turned to dust. The shelves collapsed. The store groaned in agony. Nora ran, not through aisles but through darkness, toward the sound of rain. She burst through the antique door into the night. The rain still fell, steady and cold, but the sign above the store was gone. Behind her, the building no longer stood, only an empty lot. Her phone buzzed to life. 1% battery, a single notification. Do you remember her? She stared at the screen, heart pounding. In her reflection, for a moment, just one, she saw the cracked smile of porcelain. For days, Nora couldn't sleep. She stayed at a motel on the outskirts of Mayfield, watching the rain from the same cracked window. She kept her phone charged. She never turned off the lights. But it wasn't enough. Each night she woke to whispers, to reflections that didn't match. She researched, dug through local archives. The store had burned down in 1963, but others had seen it since. Always during rain, always when they were alone. She found a message board, a thread titled "The Store That Knows Your Name." Dozens of anonymous users posted similar stories, mirrors that didn't reflect, mannequins that moved, time that ran backward. Some vanished mid-conversation. Others left strange final messages. "I see her now. Too late." The mirror opened again. Nora replied to one user named CrowHollow77, who described escaping a similar store in Oregon. They agreed to meet. He told her there were more stores. Not just one. Not just in Mayfield. They existed like echoes, places that shouldn't be, pulled into reality by trauma, grief, or guilt. They don't just trap people, he said. They remember them, recreate them, use them to pull others in. Nora showed him the cracked porcelain shard she had kept, the last piece of the oval mirror. It pulsed with heat. "They're not haunted," he whispered. "They're alive." Nora knew what she had to do. She had escaped, but others hadn't. If the store could be pulled into existence, then maybe it could be pulled apart. Nora and CrowHollow77, real name Isaac, began tracking the echoes. Every town had a story. A place that used to be there. A shop that no longer existed. A door that appeared when someone was alone. They mapped the occurrences, noting patterns. Most appeared after tragedies, after loss. Like the stores fed on grief, They contacted others, survivors, victims, witnesses, some too scared to talk, others desperate to be heard. One woman, Lydia, described escaping a store in Kansas that whispered her dead husband's voice. Another man, Dominic, claimed his sister had been missing for years, last seen walking into a toy store during a thunderstorm that no one else remembered. Isaac believed the mirrors were the key. In every case, there had been a mirror, not a reflection, but a trap. The mirrors, remember, he said, and they connect the stores. Nora had an idea. If each mirror was a gate, then maybe breaking enough of them at the right moment could sever the link. She proposed a synchronized strike. Find the remaining fragments, and on the same stormy night, destroy them all. They called it the Threshold Burn. They chose 7 towns, each with a survivor holding a shard. Mayfield, Ash Grove, Hollow, Creek, Blackwell, Redwood, Elgin, and Nora herself, who would destroy hers last because she'd been in the longest. The storm came faster than expected. The rain returned like a wound reopening. Each survivor stood alone in a place they once feared. Abandoned lots, empty attics, old storefronts. They waited for midnight. The wind howled. The mirrors began to hum. At the signal they struck, shards splintered. Screams echoed through invisible doors. The air trembled with a pressure none of them could describe. Nora watched her shard bleed light before vanishing into ash. Then silence. But it wasn't over. The walls around her shook, rain bled upward, and through the cracks of the world, a voice whispered, "You broke the glass, but the stories remain." The world didn't feel different. Not at first. The rain stopped. The sky turned quiet. Nora stood alone in the field, soaked, heart pounding. The shard in her hand had vanished. She expected release, salvation, but instead, the silence pressed in tighter and tighter. Her phone buzzed. She turned. In the center of the field stood a mirror, not cracked, not glowing, just perfectly clean. It hadn't been there seconds ago. Its surface shimmered, reflecting not Nora, but something else. A corridor, wood-paneled walls, shelves, lamps flickering. The store, but older, deeper. Isaac's voice whispered through the static of her phone. "But it's not over. You have to go back." She stepped toward it. With one breath, she touched the glass, and the world pulled her through. She landed in the original store. Not a copy, not an echo. The source. This place had never been abandoned. It had simply waited. Everything was cleaner, colder. The air smelled like candle wax and forgotten stories. The shelves whispered, and in the center of the room sat a single chair, facing a mirror. In it, Nora saw herself. But behind her reflection stood everyone who had ever vanished. Their eyes pleading, trapped not in glass, but in memory. She understood then. The store didn't just consume people. It archived them. Stories held in objects, souls sealed in porcelain. Every mannequin, every mirror was a life rewritten. Nora approached the chair, sat, faced herself. "Why me?" she asked. Her reflection smiled. "Because you remembered." A hand reached out from the glass. Porcelain, cracked, offering her a pen. "Write it down." Nora took the pen. Behind her, shelves filled with thousands of blank books rustled open. She began to write. Her name, her story, the faces of others. She filled page after page, and with every word, the store faded. The door opened. Morning light, a real sunrise. Nora stepped outside. She turned back. No building, no sign, just grass. The sky clear. Her phone buzzed one final time. The store is closed, for now. She walked away, but deep underground, somewhere outside time, a single porcelain hand picked up a new pen and began again. The store is gone. The mirrors are shattered. But the stories always return. If this story found you, it means you were meant to remember. Share it before it forgets you. And subscribe to Night Shivers Stories before the next door opens.